With all the blood, all the screaming and the crying, all the thunks and the crunches and the cracking of bones, what I remember the most about that night are the flashing lights. The strobe of the blues and the reds as a swarm of police cruisers raced into Willow's Cove summer camp, their engines roaring, their brakes squealing, tires kicking up gravel. There I was, sitting on the front steps of the main lodge, its roof burned and caved in behind me, the stench of charred logs and scorched flesh thick in the air. I watched the dozens of police cruisers speed down the dirt road as the sun rose behind the low hills that surrounded Lake Baker. The sunrise would have probably been my strongest memory if it wasn't for all those blues and reds holding my attention. When over a dozen teenagers are brutally butchered, half of them your close friends, leaving you the last survivor, you tend to grab for whatever safety you can find. A sunrise is gorgeous. An army of cops is salvation. They found me there, bloody, bruised, and close to catatonic. I had cut marks across my forearms where I fended off his attacks with that kitchen knife. His machete was lost earlier when I took that burning log in my bare hands and slammed it upside his head. I thought he was dead then, so I threw the machete into the lake, never wanting to see that tool of horror again. So many teenagers fell under that machete. Fuck that blade. I was wrong, of course. He wasn't dead. I'd stunned him, yes. I hurt him pretty bad, actually. A good chunk of his scalp was melted and raw from when the burlap sack he wore over his head caught fire. If I hadn't hit him so hard, he probably would have stumbled into the lake to put the flames out. Instead, he collapsed on the ground, and I watched him burn. Except that I only watched for a minute. That was my mistake. I should have stayed to the end. I should have made sure he was dead. But what did I know? I was 17. I was terrified and traumatized. So I stumbled up the path that led from the lake to the camp's main lodge, a lodge where just hours earlier we had all sat around, us counselors, us kids, and sang songs and drank warm beer and smoked cheap pot and laughed and flirted and enjoyed life. We were young and had our whole lives ahead of us. Or I did. 14 others didn't. They were never rescued by the 60-some cops and close to 20 paramedics who came roaring into camp. They never sat in interview room after interview room, explaining to this detective or that federal agent or this prosecutor why they were so special that they survived and others didn't. They never sat slumped behind a long table at press conference after press conference, saying the same words, telling the same story, over and over again. They never saw the sunrise I so casually ignored that morning. When the cops surrounded me, some yelling for me to get off the steps and get on the ground, some calling for the paramedics, some just standing there, some their eyes huge as they stared at the horrors that he, that monster, had created, I thought it was finally over. But it could never be over, could it? I stood up on legs I didn't think would hold me and made it down the steps without falling on my face. Rough hands grabbed me and pulled me away. Softer hands took over and guided me to an ambulance. Scared hands shook close by, trying to take in the nightmare. A nightmare that consisted of severed limbs and other body parts carefully placed in the middle of the gravel driveway that curved in front of the lodge. That spelled, Willow's Cove sucks. Huge, bloody letters made of arms and legs and hands and feet and intestines and tits and dicks. Everything was bathed in the red and the blue strobe lights. Maybe that's why I remember the lights so well. They lit up the words, making them so much worse. Or could it be because my eyes were drawn to the exclamation point at the end of those words? An exclamation point made from my boyfriend Charlton's leg and head. I still see Charlton's dead eyes reflecting that red and blue, red and blue, red and blue. Charlton had tried to save me. He was the last one to live. I thought he'd been killed when the monster broke a canoe paddle across the back of his head, then took the broken handle and shoved it through his belly. There'd been so much blood. No one could have lived after that. But Charlton did. As the monster, his sack long burned away, chased me through the twisting halls and massive rooms of the camp's lodge, Charlatan dragged himself up from the boathouse, managed to get up the porch steps, and had even yanked the broken handle out of his guts to use as a weapon. The monster saw him, grabbed him, lifted him up off his weak legs, and snapped his neck as if he were a dandelion picked from the unruly grass by Willow Cove's baseball field. In a way, Charlatan did save me, because as the monster ripped his head and one of his legs off, turning them into that grotesque punctuation mark, I was able to sneak up on the son of a bitch and bash the back of his head in with the cast iron skillet I'd snagged from the lodger's kitchen. The beast went down hard. I hit him again, and again, and again, and again. There shouldn't have been anything left. There shouldn't have been a single brain cell functioning. Not after the cast iron beatdown I gave that fucker. The monster was finally dead. Except, we know that can't be true. It never is. So, maybe the real reason I remember the lights more than anything else is that when they lifted up the monster onto a stretcher, I could have sworn I saw that one eye he had left shift and focus on me. And just like with Charlatan's eyes, the red and blue reflected clearly out of that eye. Out of an eye I had known my entire life. An eye that had belonged to my brother, to my dear Emile, to the person who butchered 14 teenagers in one single night, leaving only his twin sister alive to tell the story. Powerful, so powerful. The woman in the beige pantsuit leans forward from her comfortable chair and pats my knee. Thank you for sharing memories that still must hurt even after all of these years. 37 years this summer, I reply, wiping at the tear trickling out of the corner of my right eye. Is it a real tear? Maybe. I don't know anymore. But every time I tell this fucking story, and I still tell it a lot, a single tear leaks out of my right eye. Generally, especially after all these years, I'm pretty emotionless when I recall the gory events of that night. But like on cue, that tear forms and then spills down my cheek when I reach the climax of the bloody tale. Makes for great TV. It must be so hard, the woman, Marilyn Carpenter, says in such a fake tone of empathy that I almost laugh. There's a reason she's just a regional talk show host and not the star of her own primetime cable news show, or better yet, her own podcast. She's a Midwest hack and has the out-of-fashion pantsuit to prove it. But at this point in my life, and my career, the regional talk show circuit is what I can get. It's been almost 40 years since a homicidal rampage turned Willow's Cove into an outdoor slaughterhouse. Serial killers, even sensational ones, are a dime a dozen today. Mass murders are an everyday occurrence. Blood fills this country's gutters, and no one even bats an eye anymore. If it wasn't for the hallowed status as a final girl, I wouldn't even be able to book a gig as a guest on my agent's nephew's Twitch stream. Marilyn Carpenter is droning on about how grateful she is that I took the time to come by and tell my blah blah blah. I tune her out. I've heard it all before. My eyes drift lazily toward the studio audience, another feature from a bygone era. There are approximately 20 people in the seats meant to hold 4 times that. From what I can see, as the studio lights desperately try to blind me, the audience is mostly retirees, probably bussed in from one of the nursing homes in the area. Go to a live broadcast of an interview with Emily Burdett, lone survivor of the Willow's Cove massacre, then hit the all-you-can-eat buffet at the J&S cafeteria for lunch, where the prime rib is neither prime nor rib. A gasp escapes my lips as I see a figure sitting in the corner of the top row, his features hidden in the shadows. Marilyn's canned thank yous falter slightly from my interruption, but she recovers like a semi-pro, and in 2 seconds, we hear the floor manager shout, "And we're clear." "Are you all right?" Marilyn asks as she stands up. "What did you see?" I'm still seated, staring up at the corner seat, which is empty now. Of course it is. "Just a trick of the light," I say, and get to my feet. I can be a little jumpy after I tell my story. I can only imagine. Marilyn says, then holds out her hand. Thank you again for coming. How long will you be in town? Just for the book signing tonight, I say, and shake her hand. It's soft and firm. Then I'm off to Topeka tomorrow for another interview and another signing. They have bookstores in Topeka? Marilyn laughs. I'd warn her about throwing stones, since whatever shit town I'm in now is probably half the size. Where am I again? Excuse me? Marilyn asks, looking worried. Oh shit, was that out loud? I ask and chuckle. Then I twirl my finger next to my ear in an exaggerated circle. Road brain makes you a little cuckoo sometimes. I can only imagine. That must be her catchphrase, or her fallback when her 6 brain cells have to put together a quick response to a confusing statement. The larger TV markets would eat her alive, so it's probably best that Marilyn Carpenter is here in Columbia, Missouri, I say, and snap my fingers, making Marilyn jump. I knew it'd come to me. She gives me a look. Aren't you signing at the university bookstore? Yes, I believe so. And you forgot the name of the city where the University of Missouri is located? It takes all my strength not to laugh at the use of the word city, but I manage to keep my amusement in check. Miss Carpenter, I have been on 10 book tours over the years. I did a promotional tour for the made-for-TV movie in the 90s, and then the theatrical movie in the early 2000s. I have traveled this world 3 times over, from Japan to India, to Amsterdam to London to Sydney. I've seen it all. After all of that traveling, do you know what I've learned? No, what? She asks, so eager to hear my bit of wisdom that my feelings for her border between pity and disgust. It's all the same, I say, and I see the disappointment cloud her features before she can reel it in. Columbia, Topeka, Osaka, all the same. People want to hear my story, the same story I've told for almost 40 years, and that's it. Do they want to get to know me as a person? No. So why would I get to know them or their faceless town or city or whatever? She struggles with my insult, and it is an insult. Everywhere I go, folks think their neck of the globe is special. It's not. People live there, eat there, shit there, fuck there, just like the rest of the world. I sigh and pat her arm. I'm sorry, that was mean. I'm just tired. Promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. What? Robert Frost. Robert Frost. He's a writer, yes? She cocks her head, and I see a little defiance in her eyes, like she's about to have a thought worth a shit. I kill it instantly. You'll have to forgive my ignorance, but I didn't get to go to college, I say. It was all too much after that summer. And by the time I was at a place where I felt comfortable going, well, I already had a career. Oh yes, of course. I'm so sorry, she says, and in turn pats my arm this time. Apology accepted, I say, and walk off the stage. Maybe I'll see you at the signing tonight, she calls after me. I don't respond. Always leave them wanting more. The way he holds his head, the way his left shoulder is slightly lower than his right shoulder, the way he sits perfectly still. So, is it true then? They never found his body? I can't see his face, but I have a feeling it looks very similar to mine. Twins, after all. Was he who I thought I saw in the studio earlier? Did he sit there in the shadows, placed just right so there would be no way I could miss him? Miss Burdett? It takes all my willpower to tear my eyes away from the man in the baseball cap. If he would just lift his chin an inch, I could see his face. Miss Burdett. I finally swivel my neck and smile at the interviewer. Some small-town twat who thinks because she sells books at an independent bookstore that no one has heard of, that she's important because she does important stuff. She knows important facts. She's read important books. If I could punch her in her earnest mouth and get away with it, I would. What fucking color of lipstick is that anyway? Fluorescent pink? Is she fucking 12? I'm sorry, what was the question? Is it true they never found the body? She asks again. Your brother, they never found him? Yes, that's true. I answer for like the 12 billionth time. Why do they always ask this? They never found his body. And the 2 paramedics in the ambulance? What happened to them? I sigh. I shouldn't because my agent says it makes me look and sound pretentious, and I need to look and sound eager and grateful. Well, you try telling the same fucking story over and over again, and see how fucking eager and grateful you are, Hal. You fucking parasite. Taking 15% of my money. My money. I've never liked to share. The paramedics were found in the ambulance, their bodies stuffed into cabinets. He had to break their arms and legs in order to bend them into position for them to fit. Oh, how grotesque. Grotesque? What 22-year-old, or whatever age she is, uses the word grotesque? Pretentious fucking twat. He stands up, the man in the baseball cap, and still I can't see his face. I almost get up to follow when he reaches the bookstore's front door. I want to stand and shout at him that I see him. I know who he is. Then he's gone, out of the store and out of sight, lost in the gloom of the rainy night. Are you all right? The pretentious twat asks. I can be a little jumpy after I tell my story, I say, giving her my stock answer to that annoying question. Oh, I can only imagine. That same phrase as a carpenter woman. It must be regional. Can you? I snap. I don't mean to. It just comes out. I shake my head and look out at the packed room. At least I can still pull a crowd. Sorry, I just want to talk about my new book and maybe sign some autographs. The crowd applauds and nods and cheers and murmurs excitedly. Always so excitedly. My misery is their passion. My tragedy is their guiding light. Parasites, all of them. Of course, pretentious twat says. Now, this book isn't about the events at Willow's Cove, is it? Before I can answer, she says, let's read from the back cover, shall we? Then she starts describing my new book. A book about those convicted of brutal, horrible crimes they didn't commit, leaving the real monster to continue their rampages for years without the authorities knowing or caring. You'd be surprised how many killers roam this country with basically free rein to do as they please. When I get back to my hotel, my belly all full of canapes and cheap wine from the cheesy reception set up for bookstore employees, local celebrities and politicians, university faculty, and the few members of my Patreon who live in the area, I barely have the strength to kick off my shoes, take off my bra, and collapse across the king bed. At least I got a sweet. I really need to pee, but I'm too tired to stand up. I'll just rest for 11 years. I don't scream when I hear his voice. I don't do anything. I lay there, my eyes focused on the light above me. There are a lot of dead bugs in that glass, all blacklit by cheap, too bright LED bulbs. That's how long it took me to remember who the fuck I am. Long time, I say, my body still as a rabbit being watched by a wolf. You never were an overachiever. He laughs, and 37 years float away. I'm back at Willow's Cove, sitting by the campfire, that laugh ringing in the night. Everyone loved Emil. He was fun and funny. He could make a bad joke good and an even worse party better. When Emil walked into a room, heads turned. They watched him, wanted to be next to him, wanted him to just smile at them. Not like me. No, no, no. Emily Burdett was awkward. She wasn't funny or popular. And when she walked into a room, barely anyone noticed. Especially when she was with her twin brother. That was before I became a national sensation, of course. Before all those poor teenagers had to die, so I could rise from the ashes like a talk show circuit-dominating phoenix. I didn't think you were an overachiever either, but look at you. I shift and wait. He doesn't come for me. He doesn't attack while I'm still very vulnerable. So I slowly sit up on my elbows and look toward his voice. I knew it was you, I say, seeing him standing in the corner behind the room's door, that baseball cap still pulled down low. Did you? Yet you didn't check the blind spots when you entered the room. You're getting sloppy, twinner. Twinner? I echo and laugh. My laugh isn't infectious like his, not even close. I'd forgotten we used to call each other that. You've forgotten a lot. He steps out of the corner, and I ease myself up on the bed until my back is against the headboard. Was that you at the studio too, or just at the book signing? I ask, my hand shifting ever so closer to the bedside table. Both, he says. When I found out you were in town, I had to come see you. In town? You live here? He nods, and that baseball cap dips so it's easier to read what's on it. University of Missouri football. Go Tigers. It's funny how you never got to go to college, and here I am, working at one. You overheard that? You were still there? I've never been more than 20 yards from you since you drove into town. That's not creepy at all, I say, and laugh again. He smiles, but that's all. I clear my throat. Why are you here, Emile? What is this? Revenge? Revenge? Now he laughs. Why would I need to get revenge, Emily? I am the monster who butchered 14 kids at a summer camp according to your many books and movies and exposés and interviews and shit. If this is anything, it's completion, not revenge. Finishing up what was started, tying the present up in a neat little bow. You could have come for me at any time, anywhere. Why here? Why now? He cocks his head, and his one good eye studies me. The other is lost behind an eye patch, so I have no idea what it's doing. Oh right, it's gone. I smashed it out of his head with a cast iron skillet. Like you figured out, I live here, he says. He takes off that baseball cap and rubs his almost bald head. He looks so old. Not the fresh-faced 17-year-old he was the last time I saw him. Well, I suppose the last time I saw him, his face wasn't so fresh. Why are you smiling like that? He snaps. He puts the cap back on and glares at me with that one eye. Nothing good ever happens when you smile like that. Take a seat and tell me where you've been, I say, and nod at the small table over by the corner of the room. Why? So it'll be easier for you to get to that gun you put in the bedside table drawer? My hand had been inching in that direction, and I would have sworn I was casual enough for him not to notice. But twinners are twinners, even after 37 years. He pulls the .38 revolver out from behind his back and waves it at me. I've read all your books, Emily. I've watched all your interviews. I know your patterns. Like always having a loaded pistol next to your bed. Kinda stupid to talk about that in public, though, don't you think? My hand slides under the bed's pillow. Looking for this? He slips a second .38 out from behind his back with his other hand. You really like .38s, don't you? Revolvers don't jam, and a .38 has solid stopping power. Who are you stopping? Me? That laugh again. Except it's closer to mine than his. That makes me shiver. Why would you need to stop me, Emily? I'm your brother. I don't respond. What can I say when my long-lost, presumed dead twin brother has 2 pistols pointed at me? That's what I thought, he says, even though I stay silent. Do you really want to know where I've been? How no one found me even after all those years? I shrug, then see his eye narrow and his hands tighten on the guns, so I smile and nod. Please. 11 years. I spent 11 years in an institution. That's where I was for the first part. A John Doe. Back then, everything wasn't computerized. This was 1988. Faxing was brand new, and certainly not used by decrepit state-run asylums. And after the beating you gave me with that iron skillet, damn, I was lucky to be alive, let alone remember anything. Amnesia? You had fucking amnesia? Really? The absurdity of such a cliché makes me want to laugh. The black holes of the pistol barrels keep me from even cracking a smile. Full blown, he says and nods. Probably the best thing that could have happened to me. Once I'd recovered physically, the mental work began. I had group sessions with other patients and one-on-ones with the doctors. We delved deep into my troubles. Not that I could specifically remember any. No, It was more an exploration of my emotions and why specific phrases or subjects would set me off. Like my books and movies. There you go. The twinner is a winner. That phrase makes me smile. I can't help it. One day, around the 11-year mark, I was mopping the sunroom when an orderly came in, his eyes turning to the TV that was on low. He clapped his hands and said, "She looks like you, Johnny." And that was when I realized that you do. Years of seeing your face on the television, in magazines, on billboards. I'd never put it together. You looked like me. And then your memories came rushing back, and you spent the last 26 years plotting your revenge. Jesus, twinner, ego much? He moves closer, and my eyes go from the pistols to his face and back. I want to see it coming when he finally pulls those triggers. No, I didn't remember a thing until the funeral notice. Another 15 years went by. All those years were spent working as a custodian for the university here. One of the doctors at the asylum had a connection. It was his alma mater. So I moved 3 states over and started cleaning up freshman puke and professors' hidden liquor bottles. You only remembered who you were last year? I ask, legitimately surprised. I was starting to think that was you stalking me just before Y2K. Your gut was wrong. That rattles me. I'm a little out of it these days, yes, which is understandable considering, but my gut is rarely, if ever, wrong. You don't survive all these years without good instincts. To even consider being off that long ago doesn't sit right. Bothers you, doesn't it? You still know me, I say, and try to get more comfortable. My legs are going to sleep, and I need to keep them limber for when the time comes. So 36 years of not knowing who you are, and then suddenly you remember. That had to be a trip. Not suddenly, I told you. It was when I saw the funeral notice, in the library. The library? I was cleaning the library and saw that the parents of the famous final girl, Emily Burdett, had died in a car accident. What a tragedy for a woman who had already endured so much tragedy in her life, right? Got your name back in the headlines though, didn't it, Emily? And just before your next book was to come out. Horrible timing. I almost cancelled the planning for the tour. I doubt that. How would you know? You think you understand me because we are twins, but you don't. You don't know shit about me, Emile. I know you are a self-serving, greedy narcissist who craves the spotlight at all costs. He tips his baseball cap up with the barrel of one of the pistols and taps his eye patch. At all fucking costs. I barely twitch, and he has that barrel aimed at my head before I can let out a breath. I pee a little. I needed to go anyway, so now not only am I trapped with my very dangerous brother, but I'm about to piss the bed too. I have to hurry this up. What's the end goal, Emile? Are you going to kill me here? Or are we going somewhere you have prepared in advance? Are you going to shoot me in the head and get it over quickly? Or torture me for days, really dragging out my pain and terror? You don't get it. I have no desire to kill. I move fast, just like I've trained for all these years. I knew he'd come back eventually. There was still life in that eye of his when they rolled him up into that ambulance. And hate. So much hate. Now I know why he wasn't found all these years. But that didn't stop me from training and preparing and always being one step ahead. My hand snatches the revolver I keep strapped on my thigh under my dress. He has time for his one good eye to go wide before I put the bullet right through it. I watch his head snap back and that baseball cap go flying across the room as brain and blood splatter the hotel's suite wall. I'm up off the bed before his body hits the ground, squeezing the trigger 5 more times, emptying the gun into his chest and head. I watch him closely, making sure he isn't going to get up. When I can clearly see that his chest isn't moving, I cautiously kneel and take my 2 pistols back from him. Scurrying away just in case, I ease over to where I had tossed my purse and fish my phone out.
911, what is your emergency?
He's back. He came back and tried to kill me, but I stopped him. I stopped the killer from the Willows Cove massacre. Not really, of course. Can you excuse me? I say to the officer as my phone rings. Of course, Miss Burdett, he says and pats my arm. Why does everyone feel the need to pat me? Hello?
Emily, thank God I just heard.
Hal, my agent. Is it already on the news? I ask, trying not to sound eager.
Is it on the news? It's fucking viral. You and your brother are trending on every social and every news ticker from here to Cairo.
Why Cairo?
What?
Why Cairo? Am I big in Egypt? You never said I was big in Egypt.
What? No. I just said that to make a point. And the point is, fuck Topeka. You are getting on a plane and flying to New York tomorrow morning. I have you booked on all the morning shows, and then the nightly news followed by primetime talk shows. The next day is a whirlwind of podcasts and streamers.
Oh my, Hal, that's a lot, I say, making my voice weak and shaky. I've been through something horrible. Again. I don't know if I have it in me.
Oh God, Emily, of course.
He replies, and I can hear the panic in his voice.
But we have to strike while the iron is hot. You are the focus of the entire world. Your publisher has already called me.
They have? I ask, and hide my smile with my free hand as a few officers glance my way.
Another 3 book deals with an option for 3 more. They don't care what you write about, other than one of the books has to be about tonight, of course.
Of course, I say, and then play my cards. But I'm not so sure, Hal. I've been thinking, and I don't know if this is the direction I want to go in. I let that sit for a second.
What do you want, Emily?
Hal asks, his voice a little cold, that enthusiasm ebbing.
Talk to me.
10%, I say, and turn my back on all of the officers because there's no way to hide the smile that now stretches all the way up to my eyes. Not your usual 15 commission. You drop it to 10.
Emily, let's be reasonable.
He starts, but I cut him off instantly. Reasonable is waiting a day to talk business, Hal, I say, digging into my victim narrative. Although Hal has known me long enough that I suspect he has an inkling as to the real me. 10% means I don't add our little conversation to my narrative and all the interviews you've lined up. How would it sound if the world knew the first thing you said to me was fuck Topeka?
That wasn't the first thing I said, Emily.
He's trying to fight it, but I know I have him. My targets never escape. Not now outside a shitty hotel in Columbia, Missouri, and not back then at a summer camp in the woods.
Fine. 10%.
The defeat in his voice is almost as good as the sound of a machete hitting a skull, a broken paddle cracking through ribs, a pitchfork piercing lungs filled with air for a terrified scream that never gets loose. Great. Text me the itinerary.
My assistant will have that to you before sunrise.
Perfect. I'm flying private, of course, right? He pauses. He knows he'll either have to get the networks to front the cost, or he'll be footing the bill. Of course. He hangs up. I have pissed off my agent, but oh well, that isn't my worry. In fact, right at this moment, except that I will now need to plot my career very carefully for the next few years, so it's sustainable into my retirement. After all, it's not like I can frame my brother again for butchering all those teenagers at Willow's Cove. And I certainly don't have any more parents I can drive off the road for the publicity. It's hard work being famous. I should know. I've been milking it since 1988. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy these stories, be sure to click subscribe and check out some more stories here.